It was one of the worst periods of my life. I was 37 years old, my son was 4, and my husband and I were divorcing. I felt like a total failure. I knew I had to tell my dad before he heard the news from someone else. I called him, but when I heard his voice, I began to cry. And then to sob. The words just would not come out of my mouth. My dad patiently waited. When I was finally able to tell him what was going on, he said, "Oh, hell, Leslie, everybody knew that." Fellow Toastmasters, distinguished guests, and to all of you who have ever been shocked by your dad's reaction to bad news, my dad went on to explain, "Honey, don't you know that your old daddy is the king of never look back? When life knocks me down, I just pick myself up, dust myself off, and start working forward. I never look back." It was precisely the message I needed to hear at that moment, the perfect life lesson. Fast forward 10 years. One afternoon, I received a telephone call from my 14-year-old nephew who lives with my dad in a small Texas town. "Aunt Leslie, I'm with Popo at the emergency room. I think he's had a minor stroke or something. They won't tell me what's going on, and they won't let me go to the back. Can you call and find out what's going on?" I promised. Before I could get the number from directory assistance, my telephone rang again. This time it was the emergency room nurse who asked if I was my father's next of kin. And it happened again. The tears began to flow. The words just would not come out of my mouth. She explained that my dad was non-responsive and needed to be transferred to a hospital about an hour away, a hospital with better diagnostic facilities. I got there as fast as I could, and 4.5 hours later, I walk into his hospital room. My dad's eyes open, and for the first time in my life, he looked scared. I've never seen my dad look scared. The nurse explained that he was unable to speak or move his right side. The next morning, a neurologist came and gathered our family around a computer monitor with 3-dimensional colored images of my dad's brain. There on the computer screen was a large white mass. The doctor explained that this was no minor stroke. That mass represented tissue that had been deprived of blood and oxygen long enough that it was now dead, never to return. In there, that part of his brain housed his ability to speak, his right-sided movement, and his ability to swallow. When we asked for a prognosis for my dad, he said, "I never say never." Never. Never. That's my dad we're talking about. My dad, the smartest, most intelligent man I know. How could this be happening? He's the man who taught me the best things in life I know. He taught me how to skip rocks out across the lake. He taught me that hot dogs always taste better over a campfire. He taught me that there was nothing I could do to keep him from loving me. Oh my gosh, when I was 15 years old, I toilet papered Beverly Layton's house. I got caught. When I got home, my mom was furious. I mean, she tore me apart. When her anger was spent, she left the room, and I heard my dad say, "I thought you were smarter than that." I looked up. "Honey, I don't care how many houses you toilet paper, just don't get caught." He stood up and hugged me. He's my daddy. What that doctor didn't know, and what I had forgotten, was that was no ordinary man in a hospital bed. That man had the heart and the mind and the soul of the king of never look back. 2 days later, I'm at his bedside when the physical therapist comes in and asks him to try to stand up and walk to the door of his room and back again. I watched my dad struggle to make his leg follow the commands his brain is giving. It seemed like it took forever, but he finally made it to the door and back. I was so proud of him. The next week, we transferred him to a rehab hospital where 3 became his magic number. Anything he was asked to do, he insisted on doing 3 times. If he was asked to walk from the door of his room to the nurse's station and back again, he refused to stop until he had done it 3 times. When he got to go home a month later, the doctor told him if he was ever to recover his physical abilities, he had to walk at least 1 mile a day. I've known him to walk as many as 14. And he walks in the rain, sleet, and snow because that doctor did not mention the weather. When a tiny blood clot, the size of a pinhead, knocked my dad to the ground, I watched as he began to pull himself back up. His life would never be the same again. Friends, life knocks us all to the ground at least once. What defines who we really are is what we do next. Some people pick themselves back up, but then they focus their gaze into the rearview mirror of their lives, focused on what was or what they thought was supposed to be. But not my dad. I watched him painstakingly, slowly pick himself back up, dust himself off, and with grace and dignity, struggle to pull himself back into the driver's seat of the automobile of his life. He fixed his gaze on the horizon of possibilities that life still held for him, and then he hit the gas. The king of never